Hello, Chloe here at my home garden, and I am doing a little video for land-based training sustainable primary production students, level 4 in Kaikoura. We are about to start we technically have started module 8. Module 8 is Biointensive Growing and Market Gardening. I would like to point out that it is not biointensive market gardening. It is two things within one. And when we look at the assessments and the assignments and bits and pieces like that, there is a focus on how do you set up a market garden. We're also looking at price brackets and marketing a market garden. And the bit that I feel is not really represented in your resource notes is the actual biointensive growing bit. So, as we go along, we have this crossover between these two different things. And I want you to contemplate what you want for your own gardens, what you want for your own space, your own properties, your own future. Are you looking at creating a market garden? Is that something which may be a potential for the future? Or are you just growing enough food for yourself and that aspect of sustainability? But there is definitely an aspect of when we go into permaculture and property design, can we live off our land? Can we feed ourselves? But we live in a society where we still need money, and there's still things which realistically you're not going to be able to grow or make your own. So you can either go without, or you need to look at your commodities to how you earn your money. So I kind of put this challenge to you that we're looking at the market garden in a traditional market garden sense, but what if you do it differently? What if your space doesn't allow that, and so on and so forth? So an example of that is, we've got this space here. This is way more food than what we need personally. I'm utilizing this as a learning space, but also I'm trying to monetize it, not in the 6-figure salary kind of monetized type of way, but in a way that can pay for the expenses and give me money in the bank. There's this wonderful aspect of balance between working outside of the garden and how much time is needed in the garden. And that is a real thing, and it does sort of touch on that in the notes, where it says, how much time and how many people per area of land. It's important not to underestimate that. A garden this size is really a full-time job, and I'm definitely not here full-time for this garden currently. But that's also why our garden's a little wild and woolly, and that's okay as well. Like, that's kind of a choice, design decision, and within our design decision, we end up with naturalizing and things which are self-seeding and flowers and bits and pieces and other stuff happening, which is really quite delightful. Okay, so biointensive growing, it's been around for quite a long time. It's this aspect of utilizing your space to maximize what you can grow and how much you can grow in an area. So this is kind of probably quite typical if you look at history books. The English cottage gardens and so on and so forth. The French were very good at it, if you want to look into that. And then conventional farming came along that said, dig up paddocks and use giant machinery and plant everything in rows. And I think we kind of lost track of this aspect of maximizing our space. So it's not a new thing at all. This is an old thing that's been happening, and we're just kind of revisiting it. We've got 3 workshops, and in those workshops, number 1, I'm still figuring it out. There's only a few days to go. I'm still figuring it out because it's quite a complex one to sort of figure out. We'll definitely be doing a microgreen. Microgreens is part of one of our assessments, sowing microgreens, and so I'm going to do a demonstration on that, which I'll probably do in the afternoon, and I'll also do a video because I know that there's going to be a few people away in the afternoon. And in the morning, I'm going to potentially go through aspects of biointensive growing and look at the crops, the seeds that we've got, and do some design planning and strategizing within your groups about how you're going to do that. So this should also be helpful again for I know one person who can't come for the whole day, and it means that in your group you will have these opportunities to teach each other and work with each other. Okay, so when we go into how we design, which is workshop 2, so I'm not going to go into much of that. There's this whole wonderful thing where here is this broad aspect of what it is, and then it's really up to you how you want to do it. So we'll look at spacing, beds, placement, so on and so forth in week 2, and this one we're just going to be working on the biointensive growing, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm wandering around while I'm talking, and you can see that things are far from perfect, but that's okay. I've got a lot of things starting to go to seed, and it's not necessarily the best managed space in the world, and that's a reflection probably on the fact that I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff outside of the garden. But my chosen method of growing these gardens is biointensively, and I'm growing in blocks with a little bit of intercropping, and blocks, intercropping. I can't remember the other thing I was going to say. Anyway, and this is one method you can do it. So, companion planting is also the other thing that we'll look at. Now, when you go into market gardening, there is a real reality that you do need to standardize your beds. And if you do not, it takes a lot of time. So if you are into planting crops, it makes it, and if you think about harvesting time and changing over one crop to the next crop, if they're intercropped, you don't have that flexibility. Does that make sense? Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So you tend to grow in set blocks. In a market garden, this would probably all be lettuces, or this would all be onions, or so on and so forth. So it means that when they mature, when you're harvesting, you can go in and harvest that whole area, do whatever you need to do, and then plant your next crop. So this is successive sowing aspect. And market gardening, there tends to be a focus on high market value and fast growing commodities. So the things which take an entire season and cannot be followed or successive planted generally don't happen in a market garden unless you've got a lot of space. Whereas in a smaller one like this, where I'm potentially looking to do veggie boxes, I've got a lot more flexibility. I'm also looking at my market, about who I'm selling to and what I'm selling and how I can go about that. And I'm kind of making my plan based around what I have. So if we have a little look at this bed here, this is my asparagus bed. This is technically season 2 of planting my asparagus out. And so I have definitely had a few spares as they've come up, but I'm trying to leave them. I've let them go to fern, and that is this wonderful thing to manage. Potentially I can put a string around there to stop them falling over, but we've had all this wind, it's been a bit chaotic. Now, companion planting. What can you companion plant with asparagus? It is confusing. There's a lot of different books, there's a lot of contradicting information, and we go back to this aspect of observe what's happening. Does it work in your garden? Does it not work in your garden? You could just leave this as an asparagus bed, but to me it's quite a large space that has otherwise been underutilized. To just be left just for asparagus, which is sort of a seasonal thing, and then so on and so forth. So in my researching, and I got a whole bunch of different books, and I went through a whole bunch of different things to kind of come up with what are companion plants, what can I, so on and so forth. And so I'll be showing you my method, and again with crop rotation. I don't know whether I said that, crop rotation in there, but there's a lot of different options, and it's up to you what works best and how you're going to do that, and keeping in mind you can change as you go along. Anyway, asparagus, good companion plant. Woohoo! Tomatoes. I'll let you look into why and so on and so forth, but it makes sense to me to interplant some tomato plants in here. Now these tomato plants are small, shrubby, and good for outside. Now the next thing I've got behind there, I think most people know what a good companion plant to tomato is, a herb, which would be basil. The other thing is parsley. Parsley is also a really good herb to plant around your cucumbers and so on and so forth. So it kind of fits within that fruiting family. Now, what I've got is some chervil and some coriander. I'm utilising the fern as my shade, and that should hopefully keep the heat off that coriander and stop it bolting. Unfortunately, the herbs were put out in the sun and they did get sunburned, which is why they're not looking very good, and they need to be planted out. So they're not looking great, but they should bounce away once I've got them in the ground. So this is an example of a bed, the asparagus being perennial, they're coming up every year, and how I'm utilising the space around it or in between it. So I'm using space for the tomatoes. Potentially that might be too many tomatoes for this area. It is too many tomatoes for this area. I need to learn that. I tend to go over my biointensive. I tend to intensify a little bit too much. I'm utilising the fact that the ferns are falling over and creating shade for herbs behind it. So that is an example there. And I'm going to come over here. I was going to show you over here. I don't know. I can't remember. This isn't necessarily intercropped, but it's looking at different ways of doing things. Looking at your space. Potatoes are doing their things, and over here I had got cabbages which are ready to come out. My celery is going to seed. I'm probably going to leave some of that in there. I've put my courgettes down here, and I'm going to have outside tomatoes in this second row here. And you can see, things are definitely starting to grow and come up. That's my comfrey, and so on and so forth. Okay. It's looking messy, it's looking scruffy, but this is also what I have and how I'm working with these different aspects, and they have benefits. So last point while I am here is to have that conversation about, in a conventional sense, compost feeds the soil and fertilizer feeds the plant. The importance of crop rotation and fertilization plans does come in when you're looking at biointensive. You need to know your soil type. You need to be able to think what's going on and have that sort of strategized. Have a plan. Having plans really helps. And we will look at some of those kind of plans which are out there and potentials of what you're doing. We're also going to throw in an extra into the mix, which is planting by the moon. Now, for the assignment, I think if we just look at sowing dates, and again we'll go over this when we are going to sow our seeds and which seeds we plant when, and that will cover off that assignment. Again, up to you. How are you growing your garden? Is it organic? Is it certified organic? Is it, so on and so forth. It's really very flexible to how you actually want to do it. And my fun job is to try and show you, give you an idea of all those different systems. The big reality is that we don't have enough workshop hours, and so there is a lot of scope for you to go in and to research and look up and to, really think about what you actually want to achieve. So I know that my soil is very poor. I know that I am coastal and I get sea breezes, and I know I am sandy loam, and I need to fertilise on a regular basis, which I'm not doing very well. I have slugs, I have snails, and we moved the strawberries to save them from the doggies. And what I'm noticing is the birds aren't even waiting for them to be ripe. They're getting in there. So I need to cover my tomatoes, strawberries. But this is another aspect of biointensive market gardening. It's about going, okay, here, or permaculture, kind of both. Here's a problem, how do I solve it? As opposed to that can't happen. That's sort of the opposing, the different options that you've got. Is it okay that I have cornflowers which bring me joy and things which have self-seeded happily and bring in the bees and the flowers and so on and so forth, in amongst the weeds? Is it okay that my celery is going to go to seed? Celery seeds are lovely, by the way. They're going to bring in more bees. They're going to create shade if I need it. There's lots of ways to look at things, I think is what I'm trying to say. Borage. If anybody wants borage seedlings, come and get them. The same with nasturtiums. We've got a gazillion nasturtiums down at the community garden, which can be dug up and transplanted. What else can I say? Design aspects. We move things from where the dogs were getting them, and I put my berries over here. This is another aspect. This is a high frost area in winter, and raspberries need that cold. So potentially, it wasn't necessarily a completely thought out plan, but that's the way it's worked. I could have happier raspberries this year. Another thing that's been going on in this garden is which is happening everywhere in Kaikoura, is we've had these intense winds. Now this happens every year. I did lose a currant. I think if you go in here, hey, there's the stem. It was a little bit disappointing, but also in reality I had planted it too close, and this is now much better planting. So sometimes your disasters are actually beneficial. But realistically I think for next year I know for that spring winds, I need to put up wind protection, which is probably not a difficult thing to do. So that's something there. I have a lot of weeds. I have a lot of convolvulus. Ooh, that's what I was going to show you. So come back over here. Oh, my rows of potatoes. And what happened here? What I think happened was chickens. So I think the chickens came in and scratched the potatoes out. Like I say that this one is one of those ones. So I haven't got a nice neat rows. The wind also came in and blew away a great deal of my mulch. And I'm okay with that. But I'm now at the point where they need some more topping up. Before I go back over to my weeds, don't let me forget. This area is where I had my potatoes last year. And there's definitely this aspect of people say, don't put potatoes, you'll hear it, don't put potatoes in. It's like, yeah, because if you miss a potato, it will regrow. I have every intention of putting corn in this space, and I'm okay that my potatoes are growing here. They're looking pretty healthy. There is some frost, and some of them have been damaged. There is a higher risk of disease and so on and so forth, but that's also a management thing. So for me, this is a free crop. Yay, that's awesome. I'm not making an effort to earth these up and so on and so forth. But at the back there, that is a new area. And I did have a bunch of yams, and I did have some more potatoes, which I have actually planted in the back there. So that's just utilising that space. Other wonderful things I've got in here are these guys, which are yams, not to be confused with their cousin. No, potential. Hopefully that's a yam. That's definitely a yam. But I do also have oxalis in here. Oxalis. So as you can see, definitely a cousin, but one is a weed. One is an edible weed in small amounts because of the oxalic acid. But yeah, so it's very hard to get rid of these weeds. It's a management aspect. And so my thing is that you pull them out. If you are doing a no-dig garden, your ground should be less compacted, which does mean that when you pull out the roots, they do come out quite easily. So anytime I'm seeing a shoot, I'm just pulling it, taking it out. That there is our little oxalis friend. These things are notoriously difficult because generally what happens is you pull out that weed and this little nodule stays, and then they regrow, and they're a bit of a nightmare. But they also have beautiful flowers. They taste lemony when you eat them. So there's this aspect, is it really a major problem, or just something which can be managed over time? There's a great big dock leaf in there. I could take off the leaves, which will slow down the growth. It'll keep coming up. That's also bringing out nutrients from lower down. I say lower down, we know that I'm kind of joking because this area is just fill and it's just kind of rubbish. So, management. Beautiful cabbages, not so beautiful cabbage. I kind of left that one there and said, well, they can all attack that one. It is a weekend plant. And I need to do something, I don't know, maybe I'm going to do a big thing of sauerkraut when I've got an extra week within my week. What else can I say? Compost is dry. It's okay. It's doing its thing. So these are my beds. As I said, we'll go over this more in week 2. These ones are 10 meters long, and I'd have to go in and recheck the width of my paths and so on and so forth, which we can discuss further, and management of that. Again, this is not ideal, but this is also an aspect of where I'm living and what I had to do within my design process. Thinking outside the box, I did get these lovely little tunnel houses, which has been quite dramatic in the wind. But instead of creating whole new beds, I went, okay, how else can I do it differently? And this was a solution which I came up with, which was utilising the wolf edges. Wolf edges have definitely gone up in price since I had a thought about that idea, but we did manage to find some not quite wolf edges. They called them something else. It was the end of a line stuff. They were cheap. Mr. Snail, crunch. And what have I filled it with? I've gone and got a soil compost mix without fertilizer in it, so I'm going to put my own fertilizer in there, but it should have then the minerals within the soil as well as that compost as well as my fertilizer. Because I'm in a controlled environment, we have to look at watering, but we should be able to do some fun stuff in here. Everything has its pros and cons. An aspect when we're setting this up, I was like, weeds around the edges, and that's definitely a thing which needs to be managed. I don't want to look at it because this is my frustration, but we will come up with a solution. Hardening things off, my other little greenhouse area. If you would like some tomatoes, let me know. I have a lot of tomatoes. Discount prices for students. And what is in there? There's also watermelons, and there's heritage melons, and the tomatillos and chilies, and that's my kumara. Kumara's doing stuff over there, which is also kind of exciting. Quite happy to leave that till later. So yeah, I'm kind of using this space as a hothouse. You look at this and you realise that there is a lot of empty, wasted space. How can I utilise that better? It's always a question. How can I utilise my space better? Okay. Going back to you guys, I'm still haven't figured out where group 3 is going to be planting. There is a lot of space here. Sorry, doggy's barking. And so, quiet please. Potentially we'll have the 2 groups here, and group 2 utilising the community garden space. As you will see when we actually go and come up with our design of how we're going to plant our seedlings, we can look into which one is the most space efficient, since you're all kind of doing the same seedlings. It'll be interesting to see how much food you can grow in the smallest amount of area. No, that's not a challenge, but I just thought that literally is kind of what we're doing. So again, I've got more those bags down the back there that's going to be filled in hopefully soonish. So we have a lot of growing space, but I also have my own things which I need to plant out, so we have to kind of think about these things and make a plan, guys, because I do need to plant my tomatillos. Look at my tomatillos. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, they're flowering already. Fantastic. Okay, today is, what is it, the 2nd of November. I believe we're in the constellation of a flower day. I am going to plant my flowers, literal flowers, so chamomile, sunflowers, geraniums? No, not geraniums. What's the other one? Calendula and marigolds. Marigolds. I'm not planting the other one. I've got a lot of those. And I'm also going to be planting my broccoli. And tonight we're going to eat the cauliflower. Okay, see you all Saturday.